You like a good underdog story, right? The little guy taking on the man with nothing but some humble equipment and his wits. Yeah, I thought so. Well, have I got a story for you? A story about a man and his car. A car that he crashes and then has to build a new one, which turns out to be even better than the first. This isn't just the story of one car, but the story of one dedicated man's racing career.
Odi Bakchis is your winner.
Today, we are going from intercooler to radiator, which happens to be in the back, bumper to bumper on this Vulcan Formula D spec Nissan S14. 0.5. I'll explain that in the video, what the 0.5 means. Big thanks to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this episode of Bumper to Bumper. If you don't know, a VPN or virtual private network is a great way to keep your info private when you're online. I'm a bit of a shopaholic, okay? And when I'm buying car parts online, I use ExpressVPN to protect my credit card info from snoops, hackers, kooks, spicy boys, and schmeagles. And that makes me feel safe and secure. A shopaholic like me loves deals. I bought 2 steering wheels on Friday. And let me tell you, ExpressVPN is a good deal. It's less than $7 a month, and it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Take back your internet privacy today and find out how you can get 3 months for free by clicking the link in the description box. expressvpn.com/bumper to bumper. Take back your privacy today with ExpressVPN. Support the companies that support Donut. Let me set the stage. Formula Drift is one of the world's most exciting motorsports. Competitors throw their cars around short courses set up on ovals, racetracks, and even city streets. Drivers take turns doing lead and follow runs. Then the winner is determined by 3 judges. That's right, first to the finish line isn't how you win in this sport. The subjective nature of Formula Drift makes it different than anything else, and that's what makes it unique. And to win in a unique motorsport, you need a unique car. Odi Bakchis has been in the drifting game for as long as time, 10 years to be exact. He started his drifting career in 2009, and thanks to his experience in rally racing, he was able to go pro just a year later, quickly earning Formula Drift's Rookie of the Year award in 2011. His career took a bit of a speed bump in 2012 when a crash at Formula Drift Vegas totaled his Nissan S14. Odi had only 6 weeks to build a new car, and believe it or not, the car you see right now is what he came up with. Odi is competing with a car that he built 7 years ago. He's up against big dudes. I'm talking killers like Vaughn Gittin Jr., Frederick Osbo, and James Dean, some of the best drifters in the entire world. Some of these FD teams have dedicated facilities with full-time engineers and mechanics working on the cars after events, but Odi, he takes his car back to his house. So what makes this car so unique? Well, that's kind of a hard question because on the surface, it's not. I'll explain. The Nissan S chassis is ubiquitous in the drifting world. The S13, S14, and S15 are loved all over the planet for their superb balanced performance and affordability. It's almost as if Nissan themselves designed this thing to go drifting. Odi loves the way the S chassis drives so much that he gave up drifting another car he was being paid to drive because he thought his S14 had a better chance at winning. Because of this, tons of people, including Odi's rivals, choose the S14 as a drift platform. Odi's car runs a V8, a Chevy LS-based engine. Actually, this isn't very unique either. Around 2012, a lot of FD drivers started switching over to V8 engines. Just because drifting started in Japan doesn't mean that FD drivers feel beholden to use smaller Japanese engines in their cars. They want to make the most power they can as reliably as they can, and V8s do that job pretty dang well. In Odi's first pro car, the one that crashed, he swapped out the turbocharged drivetrain for an LS1 engine made by Chevy. He told me that the swap was his first big career milestone because he could make reliable and repeatable horsepower, which allowed him to focus on tuning the suspension instead of tweaking the boost levels all the time between his runs. The engine that's in there now is a little different from the LS1 he ran all those years ago. This is a custom-built 427 cubic inch 7-liter monster. Nothing in this engine was manufactured by Chevy. Odi's engine was done by CBM Motorsports in Colton, California, near Woodrow Wilson Elementary School. Go Wildcats. Inside the engine lives the crankshaft, obviously, but this crankshaft is called a Dragon Slayer. These things are ultra heat treated to be super strong, just like me, and have super tight tolerances, unlike me. The cylinder heads are CNC ported, meaning air flows through them a lot more smoothly. Despite Odi's insistence that this S14 isn't unique, he's a very humble guy, there is one feature on this engine that sets it apart. The supercharger. But Odi's supercharger doesn't sit on the top of his engine. It sits off to the side and looks like a turbo. Don't be fooled, it is not. It is a supercharger. Odi uses a Vortex centrifugal supercharger, which might look different than other blowers that you're used to, but it works essentially the same. Centrifugal superchargers are driven by a belt or a chain connected to the crankshaft. As the crankshaft turns, the supercharger sucks in air with the impeller and compresses it. Because air gets hot when compressed, the air is fed through an intercooler, which is up front, where it cools off and becomes even more dense. Then the air travels through the intake where it mixes with nitrous oxide. So you have compressed air from the supercharger mixing with a very explodey gas, and they're coming together in the cylinders. What that means is way more power, baby. Odi says this engine is capable of 1,000 horsepower, but that the team runs a measly 900 to keep things safe. What a bunch of wimps. But tons of power to break thine tires loose alone does not a drift car make. Odi has spent nearly a decade tuning every suspension component so his car drives exactly how he wants the car to drive. How a car reacts to weight changes over a course is a fundamental part of a drift car setup. Heck, it's important to any setup. So when Odi got to work tuning his suspension, he wasn't satisfied with how little adjusting he could do with the off-the-shelf parts he had on his car. Since he had worked with his dad building motocross forks when he was younger, Odi did what any normal person would do. He decided he would start his own suspension company. That company is called Feel Suspension, and you can find Feel coilovers on all four corners of this car. Go check them out at feelsuspensionstore.com. They're not paying me to say that, which reminds me, go to donut.media or donutmedia.com to get yourself some donut merch. Odi also worked with a little company called WiseFab. Do you even WiseFab, bro? To test out the rest of his suspension. Parts like suspension arms and steering knuckles. Odi told WiseFab about all the tweaks and adjustments he made to those parts, and WiseFab started making those changes in their manufacturing process to the point where Odi's former secrets eventually became the industry standard for S14 drift builds. So how does Odi like his car to drive? Well, surprisingly, Odi says that this car is actually really hard to drift. It's set extremely tight. Now, what does that mean? It means that it's loose. Okay, I'll explain. Generally, drift cars are either set up tight or loose. A loose car has really stiff suspension, which causes the rear tires to lose grip more easily because the car's weight doesn't get transferred to and from the tires in a smooth manner. Ironically, a road racer might refer to this as tight, okay? Thus the confusion. A tight car like Odi's has a lot softer suspension, thus more grip on the tires. So drivers with a tight car might have to use a lot more throttle than a loose driver would through a drift, because every time they let off, they're essentially letting the tires find more grip. Get it? Now, tight cars can be identified by their tendency to lift the front wheel on throttle, as the soft suspension in the rear takes the load of the car's weight off the front tires, like this. Sick! Unlike some other Formula Drift cars, the chassis in Odi's S14 is about as stock as it can be. Other competitors might stiffen up their chassis with seam welds, which makes it more rigid, but this S14 is held together with only the factory spot welds. Frankly, I'm surprised it hasn't split in half after years of competition. Inside, Odi's car is outfitted with your standard Formula Drift fare. There's a roll cage, which honestly has more in common with NASCARs than the original drift cars from Japan. There's a fire suppression system in case, God forbid, Odi catches on fire, which did happen to Matt Field last year. Of course, right here, you got your hydraulic handbrake. It's attached to its own caliper in the back. This is how you initiate the drift. Initial drift. No rearview mirror. Odi also has something that I could use right now. There's no AC in here. It's called a cool shirt system, which is basically a water pump that sends cool water into your undershirt and you wear it under your race suit. This thing is clutch when sitting in the staging lane, sweating your little tush off. Honestly, it sounds like something that was invented by God for me. I want one for my desk. Now remember in the beginning when I said that this was an S14.5? You might still be wondering, what does that mean? With all the work that Odi's done underneath and the countless hours spent making minute adjustments to reach drift nirvana, the car still needed to look like a drift car. It needed those final aesthetic touches. Because after all, you can't do YouTube shows without fresh hair, and you can't do drifting without a fresh look. So what did I mean when I said that this was an S14.5? Well, I meant this front end. It is not from an S14. It's from the later S15. The S14 was available in the US between 1995 and 1998. Unfortunately, Nissan stopped selling the S chassis at the end of 1998 and did not bring the S15 to the US because we didn't buy enough S14s. We do it to ourselves, okay? The S15 has a way more aggressive face that's relatively easy to swap on S14s. And that is exactly what Odi did. 15 plus 14 divided by 2, S14.5. I think it looks great. They call it the strawberry face. I don't know why. Tell me in the comments why they call it that. Odi's car is adorned with one of the most iconic liveries in motorsports, the Falcon tire, teal and blue. You've probably seen this paint scheme if you've ever watched any sort of car racing ever. From Nürburgring conquering GT cars to off-road and trophy trucks, those Falcon boys and girls roll deep, deeper than Adele. But not just any car can wear this paint scheme, right? According to Falcon, the teal stripes are akin to wings. And I quote, "Wings endorsing a sense of freedom, of being unencumbered and self-assured." If there's anything that demands freedom, being unencumbered and self-assured, it's drift driving, baby. By his own admission, Odi's S14 might not be the flashiest car in Formula Drift. But what Odi has done underneath, spending years tuning and tweaking his car to perfection, is what makes it so special. While other drivers switch chassis every 2 seasons, hoping it'll make them better, Odi stuck to what he knew, and it's starting to pay off. Odi's won 2 events so far this season and is leading Formula Drift in points, proving that you don't need the glitziest gear or the newest car to be the best. You just have to know your car the best. Thank you to Whiteline for hosting us and Odi for bringing his badass car out so we could take a look around. Thanks for watching Donut Media. I really mean that. Thank you. If you guys didn't watch this, then we would just be a bunch of weirdos hanging out in a room filming me talk, which would be strange. If you like this video, please hit that like button to let me know, because it makes me feel good. We got a lot of new shows coming this summer. One of those new shows I'm talking about is called How to Stunt. You ever wonder how they do those awesome movie stunts? Well, so did I. So we made a show about it where I find out. We drove a car under a semi-truck just like in the Fast and Furious. It's awesome. Follow me on Instagram at James Pumphrey. Follow Donut on Instagram at Donut Media. Also on Twitter for both of those things by the same name. I love you.